Well, welcome everyone. I want to introduce everyone to our first speaker, Blair. So Blair is a software developer with experience in Angular, Ember, and .NET. When he's not programming, he loves board games, Legos, and his family. Welcome, Blair. It's really great to have you joining today's meetup with all of us. We're really excited to have you talk about your summer as a digital nomad.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone. As I said, I'm excited to be here and finally be able to share. Um, this talk is going to be, as we've kind of mentioned, a little less technical, but more of just something that's going to be relevant to all of us. Most of us are in a technical role, developers, um, similar to that. So I just wanted to talk about ways that we aren't, how the remote work has allowed us to have a little more freedom and what ways you can take advantage of that. And specifically my story um, that we did and how we took advantage of the fact that I was remote to basically go and take a trip for the summer. But that still allowed me to continue working even over this time as we got out, went glamping or in our RV with that. So this just wanted to go in. This is going to be a little bit of deep dive into my story of kind of how uh, over the summer, at least the summer being the warm period in the Northern Hemisphere, if anyone's international, um, it's there's time when the schools are on holiday and it's typically warmest in the United States where I am. So for us, we were all kind of going to where we were, but I just wanted to talk a little bit and go into how uh, we packed up our entire family in our RV, technically a travel trailer, maybe people call it a caravan. And we went across, for us, it was our state, um, and went for us, it was different campgrounds over the two period. So, and won't go into it too much, but we packed a full trailer. So it was my wife and I, we have three kids, and we brought our three cats and our dog as well. So we had a full house in traveling here with that. So just kind of for some reference, there we go. Um, wait, I don't know exactly where everyone's from, but just to kind of narrow it down, I was just we were in the United States and specifically Washington State. So not Washington D.C., the other one, Washington State. With that, um, so Pacific Northwest. If you're in the United States, are familiar with that. And then within Washington State, just to kind of give you an idea of what the traveling was looking like and where we were going. We started out in eastern Washington State in a city called Pullman. If you're into college football, there's a university there, Washington State University. So, and that was where we were coming from. And we were then looking to move nearer to Seattle. And we actually ended up in the town of, it's called Paulsbo, uh, which the most place is near Seattle, but there's a body of water with a ferry between us. Uh, and over our travels, we kind of took we didn't take a very direct route with our RV. it was a chance for us to explore and get out. So we kind of wound our way up and around. Um, Over the 2 months that we were traveling, we were at 4 to 5 different campgrounds of various places throughout the state, mostly kind of going down along the bottom part here is the Columbia River. So, and actually over, so I talked about lakes and rivers. We were at a river over here, the Clearwater and the Snake, stopped at a lake, went down to a river, stopped at another river, ocean, before heading up to our destination on this peninsula up here. Um, with that, so it was quite a trip. We generally stayed at least a week, sometimes two, where at the various campgrounds have varying um, different pieces. So that was kind of the context of where our journey or my journey took us um, for that. So, and just, well, we already kind of went through a lot of it, so I won't spend a lot of time um, going back. But the key piece about me is been fully remote since 2022. So we've had the opportunity to kind of plan and understand how to do this trip um, and just do that. And I was previously, while I work at Cisco now, I'd previously worked at Washington State University. One of the reasons we were in that Eastern Washington location. Um, so anyway, but to get down to kind of what we were looking at for this trip, I had some, in order to make this work and for me to continue working, um, there were some very specific requirements that I needed to have, um, and probably like a lot of us, that we needed in order to continue to be actively developing and work efficiently with our code and with our teams. So I was we were on a large complex monorepo um, with our Angular web app. Um, and one of the key pieces for us is the application I was working on depended on API access to authenticate and get data. Um, it was large enough that uh, there was no there wasn't there was the ability to fully mock things was pretty much impossible with the way APIs were changing. So it needed at least some connection to the APIs to get on. So the API, it could be intermittent connectivity, and that'll come into play in a second. Um, with that, just normal access, but it didn't need internet connectivity. Also needed it for access to all of our SaaS tools that most of us work with in some sort. For me, it was GitHub, Jira, Confluence, were the main ones, my day-to-day ones. With that, um, and as well as using all the Git operations for that. Again, that would be okay if I could be connected most of the time. But the other key piece that I was a requirement is I needed to be available for our various Agile Scrum ceremonies and other team members at the very least over voice connections. So this was actually one of the little trickier spots because this one needed constant connectivity. Um, a voice call doesn't like if the internet drops every few minutes. Um, so, so that was one of the challenges of this is how do I get that consistent connectivity with that. So those were what I like my lists of the requirements that were things that were non-negotiable. So in order to fulfill that, here are some of the tools that I used to make this possible. The first one is one of the big ones, was the internet access. And for that, was fortunate to have access to Starlink, the satellite internet, which works really amazing, aside from when there's trees. So that was where I kind of was referring to occasionally, depending on the site, if it had clear open view of the sky, it would work reliably for all of those requirements, including the voice calls um, with that. And it worked very well still, even for the intermittent connectivity. For those who don't know, Starlink uses various mini satellites, and if something is blocking access to a satellite, it'll drop off, and depending on how blocked it is, it varies in the times. Usually it was lose a little bit every 5 to 7 minutes in the places I was at. Um, Mostly I just had it on the ground. I didn't have any super long flagpoles or anything. So it's possible. But for the most part, the Starlink satellite internet was my primary set of access. Um, and there's various options with that, various plans at different prices. I actually used the residential one, which gave a little higher priority, but it meant I had to change my address every campsite, which worked because of the way we structured it, where we'd stay for at least a week or two. Um, they do have another option called Roam, um, where you can just set it up anywhere. You don't have to set a specific address or zone. Um, with that, and if you're moving more frequently, that may be one option. But this is one of the key pieces that made it possible at the various campsites where we were, because view of the sky was one of the features they had most of. Um, and it was, and we never knew from campsite to campsite if they'd have Wi-Fi, or even if we'd have a good cell connection, which is part of, why you might want to go out camping. But as I was trying to balance that and working, the Starlink was a key piece of that with that. So when I had the Starlink, the other pieces that I used to make this setup work, this isn't my setup in the RV. It's actually someplace else, but this is what it's looked like. And the key pieces of equipment that made it possible for me started with the portable monitor. Um, I don't know. I don't know about you, but for me, I need at least two screens when I'm having, you know, my IDE, your web browser, the dev tools, and your website open. That's just too much for one screen. So having the second screen was super important. This one is a portable USB monitor that folds flat. It's just a monitor, but it's a little bigger than an iPad, but it could fold flat, and it was powered by USB-C. So it didn't require any external power, but added that extra space that help make me continue to make me productive with that. In addition to the monitor, the next key piece for me was a set of Bluetooth headphones, and ones that had a microphone. That was essential to. I find that the microphones on headsets, I prefer them. They typically are better and um, have than trying to use the like the built-in laptop or webcam ones and pick up less noise. Um, with that, as I said, you know, what where I was working in the an RV, I would usually be inside, so the kids could be outside, but it was never known when they were coming in and out because they're kids. So noise canceling, both on your microphone and as well as the headset is important um, with that because there are times when you will need to concentrate as things are going on around with that. For me, I prefer over the ear ones like I'm wearing now and like these ones. They didn't actually have noise canceling, but they covered the ears. So with music or something, it could block out most of the sound. But that was a key piece that helped me continue to focus and um, also be engaged in uh, the Scrum ceremonies, the team meetings um, with that. The other key pieces that I had was Bluetooth mouse. Um, just the wireless makes it a lot easier to move and store. Um, that this one has was easy to connect. They don't have to have Bluetooth, but I preferred Bluetooth whenever possible because I had a limited amount of ports on my computer. I imagine a lot of you do too. Um, so anything that could be wireless and use the built-in Bluetooth um, was something that I went for with that. And along that lines, so actually before I go there, I did mention the mouse pad. I actually do have this in my travel bag as well. Um, it's not essential. This mouse actually works really well on most surfaces. So if you get one that does that, but having the wrist rest and a surface when working in unknown surfaces or on a table set up in a camper um, made this something that I included as well with that. That was the mouse pad is optional, but definitely a very good piece of comfort for that and doesn't take up any space as well. And the other piece I had that kind of corresponds with that is the wireless portable keyboard. What I'd found is um, even while working with the laptop and the second screen, sometimes I wanted them where I was centered between them, and it got hard to work to the side on the laptop keyboard. The posture was odd. So this portable one, this one actually folds up into about half the size. But when unfolded, it's a um, full size keyboard. This one even includes a numpad. Um, and it made it so I could still be ergonomically centered um, while working with a two screen setup and having the flexibility to put the laptop where it made sense versus where I could type. The mouse also helped with that too. I didn't have to use the trackpad and stretch into odd positions. Um, and then the last piece with that I had is the just the charging cables. So these are the ones I use the USB port on my laptop for. I had a USB-C that could charge, my phone, um, and some of the other utilities, the keyboard, the mouse, had long lives but charged off of it. I also, for me, I had a USB, micro USB, because some of my headphones are old enough. Some of the other accessories used to that, but you can have lightning cable. If you have more, I hadn't had a need for it, but like a USB-C hub is something you can also include in like a little travel bag with that work really well. for this. Um, and in fact, I still use this travel setup even when I'm not traveling in the RV, but this is what helped me refine and develop it, needing to be in a small space. So I was sitting at basically our dining room table. I would actually set up my own little table and have to make it all fit in there. So this would hook up to that. Um, and then as far as the power, one of the other key pieces is limited power outlets. So this is all of this is powered off the one power connector to the laptop. So I just had a single plug, making that very simple. Um, One of the things that's not shown in this one necessarily is for the space wise, I did have a rising laptop stand. I could set this up and kind of shift things under it. This is a different desk, but there. And the other piece is I had a seat cushion, which was absolutely essential working in the RV because those seats and cushions are designed for, especially it was at our basically our dining room table. They're designed for a simple meal. They're not designed to sit all day as a desk. So a seat cushion was something that saved, you know, saved my butt literally many times. Um, and so there's probably be questions, but I also will have at the end of this, I'll have a link to where you can find out like all of these this equipment that I used where to get it. You don't have to use the exact same ones, but just examples of what it was. But I will have links to um, these ones if anyone's interested in those after this. So uh, yeah, but all right. So that's it for the equipment that I'd had. Uh, Now, just some of the tips that I'd learned while doing this travel and while preparing for doing that, because 2 months is a fairly significant amount of time to be working. I mean, I was still working. I only ended up taking about a day and a half of PTO over that 2 months, so was able to continue and that to get that. But here are some of the tips that I'd would recommend if this is something, if you have your RV or just wanted to work, visit family somewhere and work from there. There's lots of different options with that. And some of the tips that I'd uh, recommend making sure is just, first of all, one of the things was just communicate. So I let my manager and team know that I was going to be traveling and I would still be working. Um, so, and for the most part, it didn't affect, I was mostly unaffected. I could continue to do what I needed to, but there was occasions when, um, things don't work out or things are different. So, I let them know. Um, and especially if you'll be in a different time zone, that's than you typically are. That's something you'll definitely want to communicate. Because working times could vary, or if they're scheduling pieces. For my trip, I was lucky enough to be in the same time zone that entire time, um, and as you saw with it, mostly in the same state. So uh, that wasn't something I had to deal with, but it's definitely a consideration um, with that if you're looking to try and go out on your own as a digital nomad for a little while. And some of the other things to while you're planning are checking on your company policies as it regards to that. I as and I know especially if you're doing a different country, that can be very important. Um, I did check when I was looking when we were working on this, just to kind of see what it was. Our company has a policy you can work up to 20 days outside of your home, um, basically your home state or home country, um, before you need to, uh, but without any issues. And then until then, after those 20 days, you would have to either come back or make other changes, because that's when, for at least for our requirements, that's when the tax policies could potentially change. Um, could be considered a resident of a different place, and all the taxes um, would do that. I don't even know all the specific, but that's may not be something you want to deal with. Um, and then the other thing to plan, for me, that comes back to those requirements was having backup options, especially for the internet. That was key. As I mentioned, the Starlink was great, but occasionally it would, um, you know, we'd be in a place where there was a lot of trees, or it would be trying to face a direction and cut out every few minutes. So I'd have backups to ensure, especially that last requirement of the voice calls. Um, and for me, um, my my backup, I had multiple ones. It would start with using the cell phone if I had signal. I could either use it as a hotspot or call into meetings uh, if I needed to. So that was acceptable. Our team rarely uses video, so that would work. But it was definitely preferable to use my headset. It was clearer and easier. But that was a backup, so I could either hotspot or use a cell phone um, if I had the actual cell phone signal. Um, in the cases where we did have one where very little cell phone coverage, had a few blockage for the Starlink, so I could use it for a few things. But for my calls, it actually, they had the campground actually had a paid Wi-Fi upgrade um, that I ended up investing in order to make that work. Not all of them did, but it happened that that one was a good backup for that when the option was available. So that really depends on on the campgrounds with that most, but that's not something you can always count on. This one, I think we happened to get lucky. They had um, the next level one, or a private one. Most of them had a free Wi-Fi that was also slow or spotty. Um, and then if that didn't work out, my final one, which I thankfully didn't have to use, but was always there, is just knowing where the nearest town was um, to us. There's usually still a town and or some place that would have a Wi-Fi connection, and that was, you know, a coffee shop or a cafe. Um, so that was always my backup plan. Okay, where's the nearest town that I could go into? It might be inconvenient for a little bit, but the ability of the whole thing is the ability of all of this is to work during the work hours, but once those are done, you're in a different place. You're in out. For us, it was out in a campground near some water or wherever, but go out and do that. So even if there was a little commute, that was definitely worth worth it. As I said, thankfully I didn't have to do that, but that was always my plan C if we didn't um, do that. And then So just kind of coming to the some of the takeaways. This was kind of talking about the goal of one of the many goals of this trip was while I still wanted to continue work and use the I couldn't use not use up all the PTO, but still be with my family, be outside. For us, it was being in, in still being in nature. After work was done, could close my laptop and actually close all of that down because we needed the room in the. Basically, we had to convert the RV from my office, take all that down back into our dining room, kitchen, bedroom area because RV serves multiple purpose. But once I was done with that, I get to step out the door and be at a campground, go to the river, to the beach, go play outside with the kids, um, and whatever they were doing, riding bikes, frisbee, paddleboarding, stand-up paddleboarding. So that was really our goal. So that's kind of one of the major takeaways is we don't have to be afraid to be able to get out, even if you do need to continue working for whatever reason. It's possible and can actually be, kind of fun. Um, but it allows you that flexibility to take it beyond to your home office. Because like the other takeaway is with internet access, and we have a lot more options now. Um, most technical jobs, most developers can work almost anywhere. Um, so it's not everyone, but generally you'll be at least able to do that and take advantage of that fact and some of the extra freedom that we have with that. Um, there. And then finally, just the last pieces, if you want to get in contact with me or you have more questions about this, you can find me on Twitter. I'm also on Blue Sky. I'm not on them a lot, so I don't guarantee quick responses, but I am on them and I would get back to anything with that. Um, and then the last piece is, as I said, I'll have the PDF of these links available as well as or a PDF of the slides as well as links to all of the equipment. And I'll also include for those who want to know more, I'll be updating it with the list of the campgrounds we went to if you happen to be in Washington State and want to check them out. Uh, didn't need to go into detail here, but I'm happy to put those in for further information. Um, if that's interested. So I'll also put a link to that GitHub in the chat, so you can grab it there as well. But again, also if you DM me, I can get that to you. So yeah, that is it for
Thank you,
me.
Blair. That was great. Thank you for all those bits of information about your summer. We'll definitely add that link to the chat so people can check it out. And like I said, the information's on the screen if you want to message him and get in touch with him. So I will pass it over to Gio for our next talk. So thanks again, Blair.
Did we want to do I see at least one question.
Oh, yes, there is at least one question. Sorry.
So as
Um,
long as there's time, I go ahead and
yeah, we have some time. So let's look at
I think
this
there was
question from Matthew. Have you considered utilizing any VR tools to facilitate a larger workspace?
um actually I had not done that. There's a couple of reasons. One of those is uh most of them they're the first one is they're still pretty expensive um with that and not required. And I'm also just not as familiar with what options are available. And this, um, I mean, and this was prior to like the access of the Apple Vision Pro um, release. So the only other real ones were the ones from Facebook and Meta. And I don't know if how well they would work with a lot of the other tools that we have. I've never tried to, I've never had the opportunity to use them for, especially for coding or for a virtual meeting. Um, yeah, yes. If they were if if they were provided by the company, I might have, but all of that equipment was things I'd done on my own in order to invested in on my own. So that one was VR is a little out of my price range, but that is a very interesting option to explore. I just don't know where that's at. If there are any developers who are using a VR headset day to day, please let
Yeah.
me know. I'd be very curious. But I've never seen, except in TV shows, anyone doing coding on a VR headset.
Yeah, the future is here. Thank you for answering that. So we're going to pass it over to Gio to introduce our next presenter. Thank you so much, Blair.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Makina. So for our next speaker, we have Doguhan Uluca. Doguhan is a principal fellow at Excella in Washington, D.C. He's a GD in Angular and web technologies. Also, he's actively an open source contributor for libraries and tools such as JavaScript, Angular, Node, MongoDB. He's an author, and his best-selling book is called Angular for Enterprise-Ready Web Applications. He's deeply involved in the DC tech community. He's also has participated in numerous conferences like ng-conf, Angular Meets, Angular Denver, Coast Talk, and some others. And in his free time, he likes recording music, playing Go, and he's into mixology. I was going to say mixing drinks, but mixology sounds more elegant. So welcome,
Yeah.
Dohan.
Thank you, Gio. It's great to be here. Hello, my name is Doguhan Uluca. Today I'll be talking about the challenge of building enterprise apps in 2024. I am a principal fellow at Excella, and I specialize in modern software delivery. Also, I have been leading strategic initiatives for the company for Gen AI and cybersecurity. You can follow me at Deluca on Twitter and other platforms. All right. I'm getting this weird. I didn't hit. There you go. Okay. All right. We should be good to go now. And I'm the author for Angular for Enterprise Applications. The third edition is out now. You can go to angularforenterprise.com to check that out. All right. So when we think about enterprise apps, the first thing that comes to mind is engineering. There's this favorite meme of mine from this was put out in the year 2015, and it kind of jokes about the fact that for every problem JavaScript has, there's always the solution is always some kind of new API or library, and as you follow this, the process kind of gets deeper and deeper, and then the the software that was the solution, they become the problem, and then at the bottom of the hole there, and the developer asks, how are we going to get out of this hole by continuing to dig, and then as the miner quips, the point of digging is not freedom from digging. So yeah. This kind of focusing on the engineering problem can trap us into a kind of a problem solution cycle that we're in, and when working in enterprise applications, just focusing on the engineering problem is not enough. We need to kind of step back and take a wider look at things. So and then that's when architecting comes in. So here, we've all built small apps on our free times or on our on various projects. And with these apps, something happens. We kind of just start coding. We don't think too much about architecture, so it usually ends up being under-architected in the beginning. And then over time, as we add features, it kind of the cost of implementing those new features goes overboard because we never really thought about this thoroughly to begin with. So learning from this lesson, when we go to our big jobs, we kind of do the exact reverse. We kind of come in high with massive over engineering effort at the beginning to handle all those features that we're going to add over time. However, we don't really know what's going to happen in the future. We don't even know if we're going to add enough features to take advantage of that architecture, or whether the feature set is going to keep growing and if we're going to be able to evolve the architecture on it. So, looking at this from a different perspective, and this kind of happens over time. We, start with adding, Angular to our project, for example, and then another library on top of it, and then another library on top of that. And this kind of happens with, like the frog in the warm water, slowly boiling and not realizing what's going on. But as we add these technologies one on top of each other, we're also gradually learning about them, but we're not necessarily considering the amount of learning and expertise needed to now master this architecture that we're looking at here. You know this when you are a new team member joining a team, then you have to spend sometimes months learning the intricacies of how these things interact with each other. So, looked at individually, it may, every piece of tech could be simple. However, when you add them up, the overall effort can be daunting. So, this is when we kind of hit a wall that I call the sandbags of complexity. And if you can't kind of get over this and you get blocked, this can become quite miserable at times. So the next set of hurdles that face us when we turn around away from our computers are product managers or our clients, customers, and they just demand features and nothing else. That's what they want. So we're bound by this golden triangle, as they say. You can only have two of these, either features and quality, not enough time, or time on features and not enough quality. So we're always put in a position to balance these things. So, but when you're in the enterprise, this is not the only dimension of things you need to consider. We're always resource constrained, so we're not swimming in a pool of money. We can't see the future. Even though your third eye might be open, the bureaucracy can be very slow and frustrating, and the politics can be quite frustrating as well. What all this can lead to is if you kind of find yourself swirling in this complex, dynamic environment, is what I call the sinkhole effect. I'm sure you've seen these before, but these are events that happen when kind of over time water digs the surface underneath the surface, and then there's a catastrophic collapse. And then, of course, the fix is a little kind of road barrier that someone comes in and brings in. And funny enough, that's sometimes what happens in enterprises when something catastrophic happens, and then the solution can be quite comically inadequate. So. So the problem with the sinkhole effect is, everything is fine until it's not, right? So what we're trying to do here is prevent these, catastrophic collapses from happening. But not only prevent, but go beyond that, and of course, thrive. One of the most important lessons that I want you to take away here is learning when and how to say no. Unfortunately, to balance these things, you have to play a critical role in it. All right. So point being, you can't just blame everyone around you. All right. So today I want to talk about succeeding as a technologist, delivering a value stream, embracing AI. Yes, some of what I say might be controversial. Adopting the new Angular and being disciplined and balanced. All right. So, succeeding as a technologist. So, whether you are a leader or a team member, whatever your role is, we have to recognize the number one ingredient in everything that we do, and that's people. None of this works without all the brilliant people who are contributing code, the talented people who are building and selling the products, and of course our clients, consumers, customers that are using these products. So we have to consider everything from that lens. So one of the first things that I would like to challenge all of you tomorrow when you go to work, to ask yourself this question: do you understand the business impact of your project? Do you understand how critical is the success of your project to the business? What are the consequences of failure? What does it truly mean to fail in that project? Which features within the application will deliver the most value? What are the parameters you must operate under? What's negotiable and what's not? There's a document that should encapsulate a lot of this information. Is there a business impact analysis in place within the organization? Because that's a document that is approved usually at the executive level, and it will define the parameters of success for the company, and that's really important to know at every level of the organization to understand where you stand. So you have to set parameters of success, right? So that discovery of information is really important because within your team, you also need to align the strengths of and passions of individuals to the project needs. So if someone is really passionate, React developer, and they don't want to do anything else, you put them on an Angular project, they're not going to be very happy. You also need to balance experimentation with execution. As we were stacking those, technologies on top of one each other, we have to make sure that we have a fairly good understanding that these tools are going to play well with each other. Usually, starting a new team project isn't the time to experiment. Sure, we should do POCs on the side and definitely experiment. But don't make that part of the project execution itself. And then treat the project as a journey. Sure, you might have an end goal in mind, but that it's going to be you will always have to discover your way around certain problems, situations, limitations, whether those be people, technical, or requirements driven. issues, opportunities, or problems. And also know where the guardrails are, and that goes back to kind of what's negotiable, what's not, because it may not be clear talking to a product manager or a project manager, what's okay to kind of give up on, what's okay to leave behind, but what must be, what must be delivered, or uh, what parameters we can't just compromise on. Those are very important things to know to be able to balance things out. So, I want once again, whether you're a team member or a team leader, you have to show elastic leadership, and especially as whatever role you play on that team, and we all have to play different roles, and not only different stages of our careers, but also sometimes within the same company, as you switch from team to team, you have to kind of adapt and play different roles. So it's important that everyone understands the role that they're playing, because in the working environment, it's not a natural environment. We have to learn how to behave in it. We have to learn how to be effective and be respectful within it. So everyone has to understand the role that they play. And with that, it's very important to not be static. Just because you're given a role, don't take that so literally that you can't kind of stretch and help out and kind of be flexible. And then understand the state of your team. And once again, this is true even if you're the most junior member of your team. Is your team in survival mode, learning mode, or self-organizing mode? Because every team, no matter what group of people is involved in it, will go through these stages at various time within that team's kind of existence. So it's very normal to start as in survival mode, which then requires more of a dictator or protector style leadership. And then transition into the learning mode, which then requires a coaching style leadership. And then, ideally, transition into a self-organizing role, which then, only needs a facilitator or a servant type leader. So whether, you're leading a team or you're being led, it's important that, all members of the team are elastic, and they're constantly evolving. Right. And of course, some things to keep in mind. No plan survives first contact with the enemy, as it's famously said. But it's also important to remember, plans may be of little importance, but planning is essential. So once again, don't throw away your diagrams and documentation and meetings where you kind of sit down and agree upon what the API surface should look like, and think of this stuff ahead of time. It is still critical to go through those activities. Otherwise, we're just flying blind. So the idea is not to follow agile, or capital A agile, but the idea is to really embrace agility. So, all right. Going into the more technology side of things. Yeah, we all deliver code, but really, ultimately, at the end of the day, we're all trying to deliver a repeatable value stream. So I always love showing this video here, where the team has worked really hard building this ship, and they're going to launch it, right? So yeah, these people actually know what they're doing. to us it may look scary, but if you only deliver code, once every 6 months or once a year, you may feel very scared to deliver that code. So we need to be in a place where we are consistently delivering uh, our work, so it's well practiced and we're doing it often. One of the first steps of that is setting up GitHub Flow or some version of this trunk-based development idea, where kind of every new code, uh, every new work, whether it's a bug fix or a new feature or what it is, it always starts as a new branch, and then you commit your changes to it. You open a pull request to submit it. There can be discussions and reviews. And then ideally, you're able to have ephemeral test environments. You can deploy your code. It can be tested and verified. And then after everyone is certain that the code is good to go and it can be shipped, that's when it's merged. And then that means you have a main branch that's always ready to be deployed. So this allows us to enforce coding standards, ensure high test coverage. Those pull requests, they should never be allowed to be merged without all the tests passing. They allow us to isolate changes and make it a repeatable process. So we can safely allow anyone who wants to contribute code to the system to be able to do so from day one. But there's something. So this is only, of course, it keeps track of our code and code changes. But between merging your code and shipping, there are lots of other things that are happening, and I call this the configuration gap. So you have to be mindful of that gap. To close that gap, you need to adopt infrastructure as code, right? Everything should be scripted. If you're using containers or servers or whichever cloud provider that you're utilizing, script everything and commit those scripts alongside your code. And then go a step further, scan your dependent libraries and containers for vulnerabilities with every single merge. And doing all this will push you into the DevSecOps territory, where you're kind of shifting that security to the left, closer to development. And combined all these practices, they allow you to close that configuration gap. And then enable push button deployments. So all deployments should be as easy as maybe selecting a few parameters and then hitting a button, and then everything just works out. If you can get blue-green deployments working, that's even better. Have ephemeral test environments in place. There are lots of technical challenges to enable this, but it is possible. Do it. Go serverless. Stop running servers. All the cloud providers out there allow you to host containers on serverless hosts. So we're not just talking about serverless functions. We're talking about also running containers, without maintaining servers. So share that responsibility with the cloud provider. It's in their SLA. So that's a great way to save money. So all of this combined kind of allows for repeatable integration. And then of course, engineering is deep. So you have to adopt reliable engineering practices. And I'm not gonna kind of dive into any of these. I do cover all of this in my book, but they're also fairly popular ideas. And then optimize your architecture. So going back to that early idea of under architecting and over architecting, try to evolve your architecture as you add features. So that means with every story, you have to build that refactoring time into the story time and the test building time as well. So this means that your story estimations will always be more consistent because sure, building the feature part of it may get easier over time, but also as you're continuing your consistently refactoring and adding that just enough architecture to keep going. All right, so in my book, I cover router-first architecture from an Angular perspective. I call this the 80-20 solution based on the Pareto principle, where that first 80% costs you 20% of the time, and that last 20% costs you that 80% of the time. So I always try to optimize my project delivery to deliver that 80% as quickly as possible. So what is router-first architecture? It enforces high-level thinking, ensures consensus on features before you start coding, helps you plan on your code base and team to grow, and introduce as little engineering overhead as possible. Once again, I'm not going to dive into this in this talk, but it is in my book. So it starts with developing a roadmap and a scope, designing with lazy loading in mind. And that just means, keeping your, component structured and everything, grouped appropriately and not, getting into crazy circular references that can't be untangled. And then going in there, implementing a walking skeleton navigation experience, just as almost like a vision board type thing. Just implement an empty shell of your app. This goes a long way demonstrating to project managers or even test users what the application is gonna feel like. And then achieve a stateless, data-driven design, enforce a decoupled component architecture, differentiate between user controls and components. So your rich interactive elements, should be encapsulated separate things, whereas components should be fairly boring, just things that encapsulate the business logic or the application logic. And then, of course, maximize code reuse as much as possible. Even to this day, I see a lot of copy and pasted code all over the place. So if you can avoid that, that'll save everyone lots of time. So number 3, embrace AI. So overcome the FUD, the fear, uncertainty, and doubt about it. A great way to kind of embrace it is to adopt it holistically. But by that I mean, if you're going to try it as a team, all at once. Don't just be the odd one out, trying it out, because it really takes an entire team effort to fully get the benefits out of it. Always be transparent, responsible, fair, and ethical on how you use AI. The ideal way is to enforce these values through a company policy, so to ensure that everyone understands that those are non-negotiable asks. And then focus on replacing tasks and not jobs. Use it to automate annoying tasks. For example, if you're not a fan of writing unit tests, GenAI is great about coming up with test cases, and then use those test cases to generate the test code for you. So that way, you can actually, write unit tests, even though at the end of the day you might be tired and wanting to go home, but you can take that extra 30 minutes to just get it done and move on. One of the other great features of these Copilot tools, etc., is to help you translate code from one language to another. So if you are that a React developer and begrudgingly have to work on an Angular project, or vice versa, you can always plop in your code and ask it to translate from one framework to another, or from one language to another. So it's also great for job mobility. You can also use it to refactor code as well. But something that's really important to remember here is you are the final goods assembler. And what do I mean by that? So code comes from a lot of places, right? It comes obviously it pours out of the coffee uh, uh, that we buy every morning or that we make every morning. Um, but there are other places too. Ever since Google existed, we've been Googling for answers. And then with Stack Overflow, we just love copying, pasting answers from Stack Overflow, sometimes without fully understanding what the code does. We also pull in open source projects or open source components or UI controls into our projects all the time, and we install packages from places like npm. So if you think about it, we've been used to kind of dealing with this idea of the code coming from elsewhere outside of our own brains for quite a while now, and add GitHub Copilot to that, OpenAI to that, or Tab9 to that. It's really not that much different. Perhaps one of the big differences now, it can actually start happening faster. So um, so basically, when using AI, uh, you just have to do it tactfully, or there is a chance that it will blow back on the team. But so if this is all allowing us to deliver code faster, then it makes that automation and those pipelines all the more important, because so as the engineer, you own the code creation, and then whether that comes through AI or some other means, um, and then the code still has to be reviewed and statically analyzed. Automated validations in CI pipelines still has to happen. And then someone still has to at the end of the day, make a choice to deploy that code into production. So by introducing AI into the mix, we're not really changing anything. But if you have these good systems in place, a great CI/CD pipeline in place, you're actually going to be able to enable uh, that stream of value, to happen faster. So the goal is to achieve and enhance this consistent forward flow of features, basically. And at the end of the day, no matter what sets of technologies we use, it's always up to you to deliver a quality product. Because without the human in the loop, without the people putting all these things together, uh, you know, nothing happens. So don't believe the hype in terms of those fancy demos where the developer AI does things. All right. Number 4 is adopt the new Angular. So there is a quiet slash not so quiet revolution that's brewing up underneath Angular. And it kind of all comes down to runtime performance. So runtime performance is measured in several different ways. First, contentful paint, time to interactive, latency, and frame drops. So uh, uh, if your application is loading slow, you can lose customers, like Amazon famously, for every was 100 milliseconds, they lost $1 million or something like that. I'm sure that number is even larger now. But of course, then if user notices latency, they can get frustrated. I'm shocked that this is such a prevalent problem even today. So many large enterprises, their applications, they're just really slow, and you tap on buttons, nothing happens. Uh, it can be really frustrating. And then of course, we have all these like 120 hertz refresh rate iPhones and things like that. And then if your web app can't render fast enough, that's really going to show. So one key new piece of idea past few years has been developed is this idea of resumability. So I know in Angular, there's been a lot of talk of hydration. So what hydration is, you download the HTML, your browser downloads the HTML, and then you have to download all the JavaScript that's referenced from that HTML. You have to parse and execute all that JavaScript, so you're loading all that stuff into the memory, and then you got to bind all your event listeners, and then finally the application is ready to be interacted with. Whereas with resumability, um, you kind of get the HTML, which has just enough JavaScript or all the necessary pieces of JavaScript and everything, and the content that's needed to display and make that page interactive just in the first go, just that HTML. Things like server-side rendering does this. So frameworks like Quick.js implements a lot of these ideas. Arrow.js is a minimal framework that demonstrates some of these JavaScript fundamentals that I mentioned. And then, of course, the Angular meta framework analog enables you to kind of roll features like this out very easily. In fact, I built my book's website, angularforenterprise.com, using analog. And every time someone goes to the website, whether on their phone or their PC, and then the page just kind of just pops in, it's a bit surprising how fast it just all comes into place. Granted, it's not very complicated, but still. All right. The next thing is about mastering change detection. So this is a graphic that I adapted from Michael Hilatke's work. So this is how traditional Angular rendering works is the blue box there represents your app component. And then there's an event. It's kind of like a game engine. It ticks, every so often. And then just to figure out, what's going on in the bottom right here, that something has updated. The application has to go through every single tree node and look for, if it's dirty or not, do a dirty check, and then update all the components up and down the tree. If you have the on push change detection mode enabled, this helps performance. It limits things just to that right side of the tree, but that can still be massive for certain applications. Michael's framework, RX Angular, it's kind of like time travel into the future, because this is where the Angular framework overall is going to, because now we can pinpoint just to the specific part of the component that changed to understand where to do our render update. And of course, with RX Angular, you have to enable the stuff by hand. However, if you adopt the new Angular and you adopt signals and you start developing with all these new techniques, and with the zoneless change detection that just dropped, all of this will come out of the box for free. But it's really important to understand the whys and hows of it. Then the next controversial topic is ditch observables and RxJS to the extent it's possible and sensible, which in my opinion should be 95% plus of all code. And favor signals, control flow, NGRX, signal store, and signal state. These tools truly make it easy to much easier to manage and write your applications, because most of the applications we write, all they do is they just reach out to a server, get some data, and display it. So RxJS and observables are kind of overkill for the vast majority of the use cases that we deal with on a regular basis. I wrote a blog post on this on Medium, included the link there. It's also covered in my book. So you can go check it out there. All the source code is open source there on my GitHub, so you can access all the outcomes without having to buy the book as well. So understand resumability. That's going to become a very important concept. Write zoneless compatible code starting today. Avoid or learn to avoid RxJS and observables because it will just lead to a simpler code base. So in wrapping this up, ultimately you have to be disciplined and balanced. So you have to consider the larger problems space. You have to consider the size of your app, the reason why you're developing the app, the skill level of developers that are involved within the team. You have to focus on iterative and incremental delivery, so you're not doing that one big bang release. And then you have to create a value stream so you establish a constant forward flow of features. And this is actually a great stress reduction tool for the team as well, because so long as you're gradually delivering features, no one's getting antsy that you're not doing things on time. And then in balance to all of this, you also of course have to consider your cloud architecture, operational costs, and cybersecurity needs. Because those are non-functional requirements within projects that make things just run faster or smoother and faster. All right. So remember, only you can deliver quality code. No AI will do that for you. So you want to be like that guy. Just going about your work and enjoying yourself instead of strapped in crazy harnesses and things like that. All right. Yeah. Check out my book at angularforenterprise.com.
Thank you so much, Don, for your presentation. That was great. Looks like we have a couple of questions for you here in the chat, so I'll read them off to you. First question is from Matthew. How would you effectively communicate the cost to senior management of ignoring the sinkhole?
Well, everything is fine, right? Until it's not. You kind of that's the whole point of the sinkhole effect is it's impossible to explain it to people who are not willing to kind of open to listen, understand the impact, be flexible, and also actively, work to meet that passion with project needs. So if the senior management here at Question cares about the people that they work with, then it will solve those problems over time and automatically. But if there are lines drawn and it's just people are not listening to each other and they're talking past each other instead of having a conversation together, it's very difficult. One of the ways, I guess, over my career, I've found it's very important to build empathy with the people you work with. So you truly have to explain to management what the team is going through, and that can be tricky. But if you can find a way to create that empathy, while the team is also they're delivering as well, so that they'll open up the door to start the conversation. But it has to be fairly a holistic 360-degree assessment to really avoid those issues.
Right, good points. Another question from Mateo. How to avoid RxJS if it is the core of Angular? Signals won't replace async observables.
For now, they're at the core of Angular. For now, that's why I suggest adopting the new Angular. It's coming. It's gonna take a few years to get there, but I think you know when we get there, it's only going to become clear when you turn around and look back the transformation that the framework has gone through is going to become apparent. But yeah, I just love the fact that the framework is kind of going in that positive direction, um, and not just further going down the hole and keep digging, in search of better solutions or more complicated solutions.